Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the first two political parties in the United States of America. When you think about it, we are a nation that came together and declared its independence in the late 1700s. However, at the turn of the century in the late 1700s, we also had the involvement of these two political parties with two different ideas on how the nation should be run. So our goals today are really to learn about the first political parties in America. They were called the Federalist and the Democratic Republicans. And we want to understand the different beliefs of these parties. And that's really what a party is all about. And we'll talk about that in a moment and think about why these two parties had different beliefs. We had this unified United States of America. However, we did have a group with two sets of different beliefs. A political party, for those of you who don't really know, really involves a group of people who have the same ideology. They believe in the same things in general. That doesn't mean they agree on every single thing. So most recently, we have two leading candidates as we look at two political parties in current day America, and we have the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, though there are other parties. Um, Generally, we're talking about a group of people who have similar beliefs about how government should be run. And the group works together to try to influence government actions and elect candidates who support their beliefs, try to guide the growth of the country. So they seek to elect those who share those same beliefs. Doesn't mean they agree on everything. However, they have general beliefs that align. So for instance, as today's political parties debate immigration very hotly, some very much want to work on border control and others want to work on making those who are not currently citizens in America citizens. Does that mean that they always agree if they're in a certain party? No. However, there are general beliefs within. The one of the first parties were the Federalist. It existed from the 1790s to the 1816, and its remnants lasted until 1820. You had Alexander Hamilton, who was the leader of the Federalist. He was the Secretary of Treasury at the time, and he was supported by John Adams, then the Vice President. And the Federalist had some common beliefs. They believed that the country should be ruled by the wealthy class, and it should have a strong federal government. So the control was sort of centralized. It also focused on manufacturing. The Federalists also liked a loose interpretation of the Constitution. So they believed that what the Constitution didn't say we could do, they could do, but provided we follow those parameters. Um, Hamilton proposed that we should have an alliance with the British, feeling that even though we had defeated it and it had been our enemy, the British country had was a huge, huge, wealthy one, and that being trade partners with them would certainly benefit America in terms of trade and growing the economy. He also promoted a national bank, which would mean that we would take all our tax and tariffs and deposit them, and people could borrow them and gain credit and be able to build trade, and ultimately. Um, the Federalists would come to be known as the Hamiltonians. So the Hamiltonians, obviously, because of its leader, was Alexander Hamilton. The other party was that of the Democratic Republican Party. Thomas Jefferson, who was then the Secretary of State, and James Madison, who was a congressman, both worked together in leading this party, and they had opposing views with those of the Federalists. Jefferson and his ilk believed that the rule should be by the people, by the common people, not necessarily by the wealthy, and there were strong state governments so that they had some freedom there within the states to make some decisions. There was an emphasis on agriculture as opposed to the Federalists, who really emphasized trade and manufacture. And there was a strict interpretation of the Constitution. So word for word, what the Constitution said, that is what we were to do. He, the French had been an ally in the Revolutionary War, and they felt that the French should continue, and we should foster and build that alliance. They looked at national bank as not being an answer, but state banks, again, giving more control to the states and that of free trade. The party was eventually called the Democratic. Republicans were called the Jeffersonians, again, for the name of its leader. Why? That's the question. Is here we united this wonderful country, and here we are looking at dividing it with political parties potentially. Well, keep in mind that they all agreed that we were better being in the United States of America and believed in democracy and a republic. It was the differences on how the country should grow. And the reason why they had some of these different beliefs was they were regional in nature. If you look here, we had your north-south line back in the late 1780s, early 1790s, was along Virginia by Maryland, Maryland being the Mason-Dixon line. And so the points south of there, and then there were points north. So the Federalists really were more of the Northerners. They, of course, when we look in the north, we have um, major shipping ports. You have New York, you have Boston, you have Philadelphia. So there really was a good deal of trade and manufacture there, and why, and that is why the Federalists really favored that approach to the economy. And if you look towards the South, as we know later on, which was really instrumental in the Civil War, was that you have a very agrarian, agricultural, farming economy. So Jefferson, being a Virginian, as was James Madison, certainly favored the emphasis on agriculture and all of the pieces that led to it as we look through there. Again, we were one United States of America, but yet we had two parties. And the founding fathers did not foresee political parties. And we had just united the country. Why would we want to divide it? George Washington actually cautioned against having different parties. He believed it would divide the country. He talked about us having different interest, self-interest, which eventually would break the country. And he had a degree of insight there because eventually these differences could be attributed to the divide in the Civil War. Different economies, different beliefs. Hamilton met a lot of resistance for his financial plan for the Bank of the United States. And who led the opposition? It was Thomas Jefferson, because he felt that the bank was really going to benefit the wealthy, and the common man was not one who was going to draw from the bank, borrow from it, develop credit, and to be able to excel. People's priorities were therefore different based on the economies and the region of the country. Again, these are general ideas. So you look at someone like Thomas Jefferson, who was wealthy and very part of the aristocracy. He certainly, yet he really kind of gravitated towards the common man. And just to review, what were the key points of these two political parties? Yeah, the Jeffersonians and the Democratic Republicans believed that commoners and middle class should lead strong state government, that it was a strict interpretation of the Constitution, word by word. What we do is exactly in the Constitution. Sided with the French, and the economy, when we look at regionally in the South, was agriculture or farming, and disliked the Bank of the United States, the BUS, because it favored the rich. Federalists, on the other hand, were mainly the wealthy and educated, many in the North. Strong national government was the belief. Loose interpretation of the Constitution. So if it doesn't say it, we can do it. Foreign policy was to be pro-British, a large trading partner, and that would help us with merchants and trade. And the Federalist liked the Bank of the United States because it helped stimulate the economy and it would build America's credit. At this point, we ask that you please complete your notes and hope that you are prepared.